And we're back with another reading from When the Legends Die. We have moved into chapter 15. We finished up chapter 14. Again, with chapter 14, it deals more with Thomas Blackbull's refusal to cooperate with the kids at the Indian school, with the instructors. Benny Grayback, the industrial arts teacher who knows the language, who tries to communicate him, he rejects him. And now they're getting Blue Elk back in again. We all remember him. And Blue Elk is determined to earn his money, get his money while he can. And so now they're trying to figure out a way to break up, because remember, Thomas has his bear cub. That's basically his best friend. He calls it his brother. And so they need to get rid of the bear cub, so they leave that up to Blue Elk. So we move on to chapter 15, the bottom of page 60. Blue Elk did not arrive until the third day later. He came in late afternoon to hitch his pony at the rack and went to the agency headquarters and said to Fred at the desk, "The agent sent for me. I'm here." Fred went and told the agent, who said to sit right there. "Where have you been?" the agent asked. "I sent for you 3 days ago." Blue Elk shrugged. He looked more smug than the agent had seen him in weeks. "I've been busy," he said. "We have to get rid of that bear you brought in with the boy, Thomas Blackbull." Blue Elk's eyes narrowed. He made no answer. "I want you to take the bear back to the mountain." Blue Elk shook his head. "I cannot do this." "Well, why not?" Blue Elk smiled. "It's not my bear. It does not know me." The agent smiled grimly. "The boy will take the bear. You will go along and bring the boy back. Bear is to stay in the mountains." Blue Elk pondered, worrying something in his mind. "This is not an easy thing to do. No, I cannot do this." "Well, why not? I know it will not be easy, but that's why I sent for you." "I'm an old man. It will take time." The agent knew Blue Elk was not giving the real reason. He never did. "You're always glad to give your time for your people. You will do this for the boy." "I cannot take the bear back to Bald Mountain." "You do not have to take it that far. Horse Mountain be far enough. The other side is the other side of Horse Mountain." Blue Elk seemed to relax somewhat. "That'll be a long journey." "Well, 5 days, no more than that. All you do is take them out in the mountains, get rid of the bear, bring the boy back home. I'll pay you $10 silver. That's $2 a day." Blue Elk shook his head. $15. 10. $12. 10. Blue Elk sighed. "I have no money. I need this money now." "When the job is done, will you bring the boy back?" "I do not like this job," Blue Elk said. "Then you'll give me food for the journey." "I'll give you supper tonight and enough food for the trip." The deal was made. Blue Elk ate supper in the dining room, a double portion. When he had finished, Benny Grayback gave him the keys to the padlocks of the bear's chain and took him to a little room to talk to the boy. Blue Elk sat down on the cot and said to the boy, "I've come to take you back to the mountains where you came from." "I will not go without my brother," the boy said. "Your brother will go with us. He is going to stay in the mountains." "I do not need you to take us back. I can find the way." "Well, the agent said I should go with you." "Well, why?" "Because I brought you here." Blue Elk knew that this was a mistake as soon as he said it, but it was said. "Your mouth," the boy said bitterly. "It's like Benny Grayback's mouth. It's full of lies." "I talk straight, Thomas Blackbull." "I am Bear's brother. I didn't know this other name you speak." The boy began to sing the sorrow song. "Be quiet," Blue Elk ordered, but the boy went on chanting. Then he chanted the old songs. And before long, Blue Elk was swaying to the rhythm of the chants. The boy chanted for an hour, and Blue Elk was humming and saying words that he remembered. Dusk came and darkness. The boy became hoarse from the chanting, and Blue Elk forced the old memories away from him. "Stop this," he ordered. After a little time, the boy's hoarse voice died away. Blue Elk tried to talk to him again about the school. The boy began chanting again. And again he was so hoarse he had to stop. And Blue Elk talked about the new ways. Then the boy was chanting again. They talked and chanted through most of the night. Then at last, Blue Elk fell asleep there on the cot. When the boy heard him snoring, he tried to take the keys to the door and the padlocks out of Blue Elk's pockets. But Blue Elk roused, and the boy did not get the keys. Then the dawn began to come, and the boy chanted a sorrow song again because he could not find his song for the new day. When he was finished, Blue Elk yawned and said, "Now we will go." He unlocked the door, and they went down the long, deserted hallway and outside into the coolness of morning. They went to the horse-breaking pen, and Blue Elk gave the boy the key to the padlock on the post. He kept the other key, the one to the padlock on the bear's neck. He would need that key later. The boy unfastened the chain from the post, and he and the bear came from the pen, the boy dragging the chain still locked around its neck. They started up the road towards Bayfield. Blue Elk got on his pony and followed close behind them. They traveled all that day, going back the way they had come when Blue Elk brought them to the agency. That night they made camp and ate from the food the agent had provided for the journey. When they had eaten, Blue Elk took the end of the bear's chain and padlocked it around a tree. Then he said, "Now we will sleep." The boy, he knew, would not go away without the bear. They traveled all the next day, and again they slept with the bear chained to a tree. The third morning they came to the foot of Horse Mountain, and Blue Elk said, "We will stop here and rest." He chained the bear to a tree. Then he said, "We are going to leave the bear here." "I do not like this," the boy said. "My brother wants to go home, back to my lodge." "The bear can go home," Blue Elk said. "Tell the bear he must go home." "I will go with him." "No, you will come back with me." Then the boy knew what they had done to him, meaning that he was lured away. Without a word, he came at Blue Elk, kicking and clawing, trying to knock him down and take the key to the padlock with him. But Blue Elk, old though he was still able to defend himself. The boy struck him in the face and made him grunt with blows to the belly. He knocked off Blue Elk's derby hat and punched a hole in it. But in the end, Blue Elk had him by the arms and dragged him over to his pony. He took a rope from the saddle and tied the boy's arms to his sides, then tied his ankles together. After that, Blue Elk sat down to rest. When he had caught his breath, he said, "Let us have no more trouble about this. The bear must go away. You must go back with me." "No." Blue Elk sat and watched. The bear, which had lunged at the chain, trying to get loose while Blue Elk and the boy were struggling, quieted down. Finally, Blue Elk said, "Tell the bear he must go away, then I will let him loose." "No." Blue Elk waited again. Then he said, "If you do not tell the bear to go away, we will go back and have him chained up to the tree. If that's the way you want it to be." He shrugged. The boy did not answer. And finally Blue Elk got to his feet. He went to the boy and loosened the rope around his ankles. "Come," he said, "we'll go back now." He lifted the boy to his feet, took the end of the rope that still bound his arms, and led him to the pony. He tied the end of the rope to the saddle horn and got in the saddle. "Are you ready to go?" he asked. The boy looked at the bear, and he looked at Blue Elk, and he said, "I will tell my brother to go home." Blue Elk got off his pony and freed one of the boy's hands. He gave him the keys to both padlocks. They went down to where the bear was chained. Blue Elk still held the end of the rope. The boy went to the bear. He said, "They have made me do this, brother. They have made me tell you to go away." And he unlocked the chain from the bear's neck. Suddenly he hugged the bear's head to him and buried his face in its neck fur. And then he stepped back away from it. "Go home," he ordered. "Go! Go!" And he turned away. The bear stood for a moment, then took a step towards him. He turned and cried, "Go! Go before the chain put the chain on you again!" And the bear turned uncertain and walked away from him. The boy went to Blue Elk and said, "I wish you were dead for this thing you have done." "Unlock the chain from the tree," Blue Elk ordered. And when the chain had been loosened from the tree, Blue Elk and the boy went back to the pony. Blue Elk took the keys and put them in his pocket. He looped the chain and fastened it on his saddle. He freed the boy's arms but kept the rope around his waist, and he got on his pony. They started back the way they had come. That night he chained the boy to a tree, and late the next afternoon they returned to the agency. Blue Elk took the boy to Benny Grayback, who took him to a little room with him to the window. The boy did not talk. He walked as though he was in a daze. Blue Elk was grim. He had a dark bruise under one eye, and his hands were scarred and scratched. He walked with a limp, and he didn't stop at Fred's desk. He went directly into the agent's office. The agent looked up, and annoyed, then said, "Well, Blue Elk, back already? A little battered, but all in one piece. Did you get the job done?" "It is done." "You brought the boy back?" "The boy is here." "Fine. And the bear?" "The bear is on the other side of Horse Mountain." "Well, I can count on that. Depend on it?" "I do not tell lies." "Not unless there's $1 in it." And the agent opened a drawer and counted out 10 silver dollars. "It was a hard trip." Blue Elk felt of the bruise under his eye. The agent made no comment. He stacked the dollars on the desk in front of him. Blue Elk looked at the money, then took off his derby hat and pointed at the hole in it. The agent smiled and slowly shook his head. "A new hat wasn't in the bargain, Blue Elk, but I'll tell you what I'll do. If you really took that bear all the way to Horse Mountain, it won't come back here, not for a while anyway. And maybe you'll meet a ranchman or a hunter meanwhile. If that bear doesn't come back here the next 2 weeks, I'll see that you get a new hat. How's that?" Blue Elk sighed. 2 weeks is a long time. The agent pushed the silver dollars across the desk, and Blue Elk picked them up one at a time and put them in his pocket. He put on his battered hat. Then he turned and left, a tired and bruised old man who somehow, the agent couldn't figure out quite how, represented the pride and dignity of a whole race. Now we're also going to move on and read chapter 16, which is fairly short, and that'll be our reading for today. After the trip to Horse Mountain with Blue Elk, Thomas Black Bull seemed to accept the school and its routine. He ate the food, served in the dining room, wore the clothes he had been issued, went to the classes to which he was assigned. After a few days, he was moved out to a little room with bars, and Betty Graybeck wanted to put him in a double dormitory room with another boy. But Rowena Ellis said, "He's an unusual boy. Exceptionally reserved and self-sufficient. He doesn't need companionship. I think he'd be happier and less of a problem if allowed to have a room to himself." The agent agreed with Miss Ellis, so Thomas was given a single room in the dormitory. 2 weeks later, the agent asked for a report on him. His general conduct, it was agreed, was satisfactory. At least he wasn't starting trouble. But Benny Graybeck said he thought it was time Thomas went to the barber. "His braids should be cut off," Benny said firmly. The agent shook his head. "He'll have them cut off eventually. The other kids will shame him into it. All boys want to be like the others. What is his attitude in class? This is much more important than his braids. Is he learning the things he should?" Benny said, "No. Thomas has little interest in manual work. He's the slowest pupil in my classes." The agent turned to Neil Swanson. Remember, he's the guy that works in the stables. Neil said, "He is worse than useless in the stables. Yesterday I sent him to work cleaning the cow barns. When I went to see how he was doing, he threw a fork full of manure at me. He said cows stink." The agent smiled. "I wonder what he would have said if you had put him to work in the pig pens. Try him in the horse barns, Neil." And he turned to Rowena Ellis. "How's he doing with you?" Rowena's the school teacher. "He is doing very well," Miss Ellis said. "I'm sure he's learned far more than he lets on, from all of us," she added. "He never speaks unless spoken to, but he can make himself understood when he wants to. Thomas is an unhappy boy and hard to reach, but he learns fast." So Thomas was taken out of Benny's carpentry class and assigned to the cobbler's shop. He did better there, not only because he had some knowledge of leather, but because Ed Porter was in charge. Ed, a half-blood, was an easygoing man with none of Benny's zeal to cancel Thomas Black Bull's background and inheritance overnight. It was Ed Porter who noted the boy's unusual skill with his fingers and suggested he might be a basket maker. So Thomas was sent to the basketry class where Ed's wife, Dolly Beaverfoot, a poete from Utah, was the instructor. Dolly gave Thomas the conventional basket materials and started to show him how to make a simple meal basket. But he pushed the coarse reeds aside and said, "These are no good." He left the room, was gone half an hour, and came back with an armful of willow stems. Dolly smiled with pleasure and watched as he chose among the stems and began stripping the bark from them with his teeth, in the old way. When he had the material to suit him, he began to weave a basket in a way that not even Dolly could match. It was, Dolly said, one of the best baskets she had ever seen, so good as those the old ones among her own people had made. Word spread about Thomas Black Bull's basket. The girls in the basketry class, Thomas was the only boy in the class, had whispered among themselves how handsome he was in a rather sullen way, but now they came to his bench to admire his work and speak open words of praise. And the school boys, of course, heard about this. The boys had laughed at his braids, but never openly. Now they were talking about the new girl and saying, "She makes better baskets than the teacher. And she is really Bear's sister. That's her real name." Thomas heard these things, but he ignored them, until one afternoon at the horse barn, he and Luther Spotted Dog and two other boys were cleaning the stalls, and one of the boys said to Luther, "She's the teacher's pet, you know." Luther grinned. "Oh, but she still has to clean the barn." Thomas tightened his lips and said nothing. The boy who had spoken first said, "Was she nice to you, Luther, when she lived in your room?" Luther grinned and even more broadly. "No, she was a very poor squaw." He pretended to trip his pitchfork and threw a forkful of dirty straw at Thomas. Thomas said, "Don't do that again." One of the boys behind him threw another forkful at him, and Luther laughed and said, "Bear's sister is getting mad at us." And we're going to pause here just a sec. And we're back. Blanked out for a second there. My apologies. I think we're still moving. Let's see. Okay. All right. And we're back. Getting in the middle of the good part, too. Thomas hit Luther in the face with his fist, and the fight was on. He knocked Luther down, and another boy leaped on his back. He caught the boy by the hair and threw him to the floor. Luther came at him again. He bloodied Luther's nose before the other boy got to his feet. The fourth boy ran to find Neil Swanson. Before Neil got there, Thomas had bloodied the noses of both his tormentors and backed them into a corner where he was pounding their faces in turn. Neil caught him by the arms, dragged him away, and ordered the other boys to their rooms. Then he demanded, "Why did you start this fight?" Thomas faced him, silent and defiant. "I won't have such going-ons in my barn. Why'd you do it?" Thomas still refused to answer. "All right," Neil said. "I'll have to teach you a lesson." He took Thomas Blackbull to the harness room, got a strap, and flogged him. Thomas took a tight lift without a sound. When he had finished, Neil said, "Let this be a lesson to you. Do it again, you'll get another licking. Now go to your room." Thomas went to the school building instead of the dormitory. He went to the basketry room before Dolly Beerfoot could even ask what the matter was. He took his partly finished basket and tore it to shreds. Then he went to the dormitory to his room and locked the door. 20 minutes later, Benny Grayback was at the door. "Thomas," he ordered, "unlock the door. I want to talk to you." There was no answer. Benny pounded on the door, and he ordered, he pleaded, but he got no answer at all. A little later, Rumia Ellis came to the door. She knocked and said, "Thomas, this is Miss Ellis. I want to talk to you, Thomas." No answer. "I want to know what happened. You've done something very bad, Thomas, but I'm sure it's not all your fault. Can you talk to me and tell me about it? Can't you, Thomas?" Still no answer. She pounded on the door. "Thomas," she shouted, "open this door at once." But the door did not open, and there was no sound from inside. She waited 10 minutes, then said, "Thomas Blackbull, if you do not open this door at once, I will not try to keep them from punishing you severely. Do you hear me, Thomas?" Silence. And finally she went away. He stayed in his room all that night and all the next day. Benny Grayback came to the door again the next evening and ordered, then threatened. Rumia Ellis came again and pleaded, then threatened. He answered neither of them, and the agent said, "Leave him alone. He'll starve out in another day or two." So you can see where we leave off at the end of chapter 16. Now Thomas is back at the school. He's had to abandon his bear, and now he's being beaten because he is defying the rules of the school. Again, it's because he's still trying to keep his independence and keep who he is, trying to stay Bear Brother. But the forces that want him to be Thomas Blackbull are getting stronger and stronger. And we'll be picking up next with chapter 17.